Would you all please rise? Please be seated. Good morning, brothers and sisters. We'd like to, on behalf of the family, welcome you all out this morning. I'm Bishop Liston, and the family has asked me to conduct this celebration in honor of the life of Melva Jean Thompson Barney, our loving mother, grandmother, great-grandmother, great-great-grandmother, sister, friend, and neighbor. Born September 19th, 1931 in Salina, Utah, died April 29th, 2025 in Salina, Utah. Parents George William and Alice Nelva Flanagan Thompson, both deceased. Married Glenn Moroni Barney October 4th, 1947 in Richfield, Utah. He preceded her in death August 20th, 2022. Children Glenda and Gary Lund, Brad and Lisa Barney, Lane and Kimberly Barney, Glenn Craig and Sue Barney. 12 grandchildren, 16 great-grandchildren, 4 great-great-grandchildren. Brother Clyde Thompson, preceded in death by 2 grandsons, Jared Lund and Jesse Lund, and her siblings, Darlene Anderson, Robert Thompson, Thomas Thompson, Wayne Thompson, and John Thompson. Services are held today, Saturday, May 3rd, 2025 at 11 a.m. at the Salina LDS Stake Center in Salina, Utah. Officiating Bishop Matthew Liston of the Salina First Ward, and Springer Turner is the funeral home. Our services today will go as follows. The family prayer was offered by Bishop Robert Udy. Our prelude music was provided by Sister Colette Torgerson, and I will be conducting. Our invocation today will be given by Sister Lisa Udy, and we'll have a recorded musical selection You'll Be There by George Strait. Then we'll have a tribute by Nanette Prisby. Then Memories of Grandma by Tyler Barney, Brett Barney, and Stacy Wolf. Then another recorded musical selection, It's Your Love by Tim McGraw and Faith Hill. And we'll have a speaker, Heather Nelson. Then I'll give some final remarks, and then we'll have one more, a musical selection, Can't Help Falling in Love by Elvis Presley. Our benediction will then be given by Jared Peterson. Our interment today will be at the Salina Pioneer Cemetery in Salina, Utah, and the grave dedication will be done by Bishop Robert Udy. Our pallbearers today are Brad Barney, Ryan Barney, Jason Lewis, Lane Barney, Tyler Barney, Eric Wolf, and Brett Barney. Honorary pallbearers, Gage Mickelson, Malachi Prisby, Connor Barney, Braden Christensen, Crew Lewis, Wyatt Barney, Christopher Barney, Dylan Barney, Daniel Kipp, Dylan Housel, and Brad Jorgensen. Pallbearers in heaven, Craig Barney, Jared Lund, Gary Lund, and Jesse Lund. Sister Udy.
Our dear Father in heaven, as we gather before thee this beautiful Saturday morning to celebrate the life of Melva Jean Thompson Barney, we give thee thanks for the special place she's had in all of our hearts. We ask you to bless this family, that they will be able to grow stronger and honor the legacy that Glenn and Melva has left for them. Father, we also give thee thanks for the beautiful reunion that's taking place on the other side as she helped raise Sibley. She's such a beautiful daughter of God, and we say this in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Nanette Prisby, and I'm deeply honored to stand before you today to give a tribute as Melva, Barney's granddaughter. Like many of you, I was blessed to share in her love, wisdom, and incredible warmth. She brought warmth to all of our lives. Today, I have the privilege of celebrating and remembering the remarkable woman that she was. She taught us beauty and resilience, the importance of kindness, and the joy of embracing each moment. I will start by sharing several of the memories she shared with me as a child and young adult. My mom and my grandma and I would go for rides around Salina some time ago, and we'd visit the same places. Like, she just loved to travel in Salina. Like, was her sweet spot. This is hard for me to do, so you'll have to bear with me. One of Grandma's earliest childhood memories was they had a little log cabin up the top of Main and Salina, and there was a German prisoner camp up there, and it was just literally right across the road, like up where the rodeo grounds sit, and right next to the river, or not the river, the creek that ran along there. One of the stories that she shared with us was that she would come up missing, and great grandma Nellie would look for her, and she'd be top of a pole. You know, the concentration camp had poles up there. I think they were telephone poles or something like that. But she'd frequently get stuck up there. She'd climb up there, and she couldn't get down. So Grandma Nellie would have to climb up there and get her. So she was always disappearing. And the next story I want to share with you is at the same little log cabin at the top of Maine. Her and her girlfriend was sleeping out one night, and in the backyard, and they heard all these shots being fired. And they were startled, and great grandma Nellie ran out there and picked them up and took them in, and it happened to be the night that the German prisoners were shot. So that was one of her memories. I can see why, it'd be really scary. And this is my favorite story that she shared with us, and that would be how she met Grandpa. So Grandma said she was 15, 16 years old, somewhere in there, and her version of the story, and I'll have to be very careful to remember her exact words because I think that's very important. So Grandma, she lived up by the Red Hill across the street at that time, and she was living with great grandma Nellie, and her dad was passed. And so every Saturday, Grandma and Rowene would walk to the Saturday matinees, because back then that's probably about the only thing there was to do. So do every weekend. And then one day, I don't remember if she was walking to or from the matinee, but she heard a car, and she looked, and there was a blue Model A with yellow rims, and it zoomed by them, and it slowed down, and there was a lot of whistling and carrying on and hooting and hollering, and it happened to be a car full of boys, right? They're older boys, So Grandma told me all they could do was look at the ground and keep walking, Didn't want to make any eye contact, basically. So the boys would eventually give up because they weren't getting any response, So this went on for weeks. Every Saturday, this blue Model A full of boys would zoom past them, hoot and holler, whistle, try to do everything they could to get their attention. And so eventually this went on for weeks. And finally, one day, they responded to him, and they said, there was this driver, his name was Barney, he was driving the truck, or the car, and he says, well, we'll just take you to your house up the road and we'll drop you off, right? So they said, they decided to go ahead and get in with them, and Grandma said that she noticed a line of cigarettes lined out on the dash in front of this car, you know, and I asked Grandma, well, why would that be? And she said that he did it to impress the girls, but Glenn didn't smoke. So they did it just to try to pick up girls or whatever, you know, anything they could. So, anyways, they went on up the park road to drop them off at Great Grandma Nellie's across the street from the Red Hill. And when they got there, the car sped up, went right past Grandma Nellie's. And Grandma told me she was so terrified, like she didn't know what these boys were gonna take her and do with her, you know? So anyways, they went up the road down and then ended up bringing them back to Grandma Nellie's. So that's how it all started. And it wasn't too much longer that Grandpa Glenn Barney was showing up on Grandma Nellie's doorstep to ask for her hand in marriage. And Grandma told me that he showed up there and he asked Grandma Nellie for her hand in marriage. And Grandma Nellie says, well, what about her schooling? You know, what about that? And Glenn said, he says, she don't need school. I'll always take care of her. And he did to the very end. Grandma didn't ever have to worry about anything. And then, so when they were first married, Grandma told me stories about, they ended up living in the log cabin because Grandma let them live there, Grandma Nellie. So I guess she still had it in her possession. So that was their first home in this little log cabin. If you've ever seen the picture, it's shabby. It's like a shabby little shack, you know. And so, but this ended up being her domain, and she told me stories of having gunny sacks full of milk, butter that you have to go put in the river to refrigerate them. And she also told me that she'd have to go take these buckets down to the creek, fill them up, take them in, heat them up, and that was the water source for their meals, to bathe in, you know, anything she needed water for, that was where she got her water. Okay, and then the next thing, I asked her about, well, no, she just told me that for maternity wear, she would have to just take the breeches she has and get a rope and to hold her pants up around her belly that was growing with Craig. She was pregnant with Craig. So when I asked Grandma, how in the heck did you do that? Like, there's no way I don't think any of us could live like that. And she said that that's all they knew. You know, that's what they knew. Back then it was no thing, it was just how they lived. She didn't know any better. So, let's see. So while they was living there, Grandma, you know, she tended the home. Grandpa was away driving truck, working a lot, and so she did all the household things. She kept house, and I don't know what kind of house she kept back then, but I'm sure it was immaculate. She did what she could, and so another story that Grandma shared me around this time when Craig was born. It might have been afterwards, but she got appendicitis, and at birth, she told me that all they did was she went into the doctor, they opened her up, they poured some water on her all over her, and sewed her back up. And she lived through that. I mean, that kills people. So that tells me something about Grandma's resilience. So this tribute to Grandma, I'd like to say, Grandma wasn't just a presence in our life, she was a force. She was a woman who loved deeply, laughed often, and lived life with a sparkle, a charm, and a touch of old Hollywood grace. She had a heart for her children. She would light up whenever she was surrounded by their giggles and curiosity. Soon after being in their company, out would pop the mousy fingers. Here comes the mousy, here comes the mousy. She absolutely adored children. Let's see. And we all know that this was probably connected to she loved Shirley Temple, and I think she got a good collection of her videos and whatnot. Her home sparkled under her meticulous care. As a self-made professional cleaner with OCD, nothing escaped her eye. I did a lot of cleaning for her over the years, and it wasn't done just right. If it wasn't done just right, she'd have me do it over and over and over. This is where I learned a lot of patience. There was one day that I was vacuuming her stairs down to her basement, and it doesn't take very long to vacuum on your hands. It needs 5 stairs. And she says, that was too fast, you need to do it over. And she didn't even watch me do it. She said, that's just too fast, you have to do it over. So I did it over. And then when I cleaned her house, she had me have 3 buckets of water each, one with vinegar, one with joy, and one with water. And she'd be looking over, is that mixed right? Are you sure you didn't get any vinegar with the soap? Because, it's going to damage her drapes or her carpet. The rags couldn't cross. I had to make sure the rags were in the right ones. The rag with the vinegar, if I was washing the walls down, couldn't touch the carpet. There's a fine line there. And she was there over my shoulder, she definitely was a professional cleaner. All this showed a reflection of the pride that she took in creating a warm and beautiful space for all who entered. Grandma loved John Wayne, the Duke, for she has an exquisite collection of the things, I would say more like a shrine, and watched his movie, and I'm not exaggerating, 100,000 times over. I think I sensed a little bit of jealousy from Gramps time to time over it. But Gramps had nothing to worry about. Glenn was her real hero. He had her devotion, her undying love, and her desire. In Grandpa's last moments on Earth, John Wayne faded from her memory, but Grandpa never did. Even Alzheimer's separate her from her one and only love. Till her last moment, she was calling out his name. Grandma adored Elvie the Pelvy. And I should say no more about that, but I'll tell you a little thing. Not too long ago, she was busting a move with her fingers to Jailhouse Rock. Really recent. She'd say, I'm rocking and rolling with Elvis. It was so cute. Another thing about Grandma, Grandma was a lady. She was just a lady. Everything she did, she was ladylike. And no matter what the day held, she made sure to start it just right, putting on her face, getting her mop done, and stepping into the world with confidence and elegance. It was more than routine, it was her signature. In her last days, she was still putting on her face. It might have been perfect, but she sure tried. Her style was dazzling yet modest. She was always dressed to the hilt when she went out. And she always wore shoes that made a statement. A lot of shoes, a lot. She wore jewelry that couldn't be ignored because it was so big and gaudy, And And the clothing that she wore and the clothing she wore was just shined like her spirit. It really brought her true spirit out. Grandma loved to shop, as lots of us know, and she could outshop any of us. The grandkids, the aunts, all my cousins, like she was tirelessly shopping. She was so enthusiastic about it, and she was tirelessly browsing through dealers, often found in the shoe department or at the makeup counter. Even as my mom and my cousins and aunts who were much younger got tired, she kept going. Her energy and enthusiasm was unreal. Her collections, oh yeah, and I could say a lot more about our shopping trips, but I believe what happens at the store should stay at the store. And same with when we would leave the whole day until we got home and put stuff away is what I'm talking about, just an end of the store. Anybody that Grandma bought for, anybody that sold stuff to her, anybody that for her, that's all included, and it stays that way. We don't need to say no more about that. Her collections told her story, a love for dolls, antiques, anything unique that nobody else in the world has. She loved carnival glass and anything that added a special touch to her domain. Every chicken decoration, every Madame Alexander doll, every knick-knack had a time and a place and carried a special meaning to her. I think if Grandma ever would have had to work outside the home, she would have possibly been a historian. She sought out records of family history and the history of Salina over many years. She was relentless about this. She very much cherished the hometown of Salina, and I say she lived here probably about 99% of her life. I think she lived up in Provo somewhere for a while, when she was really young. She was just happy driving the streets of Salina and reminiscing about memories. And this town holds a lot of roots to her story as a person. Grandma put much effort into preserving her family memories through photos. She constantly was taking pictures of all of us in different, poses and awkward poses, but now we have so many memories to look through that we had forgot about that we appreciate today. Christmas was epic. Christmas was Grandma's time to shine. It was more than a holiday. She made it magical for everyone, especially the little ones. It was a celebration of family, love, giving, and joy. We gathered, the little kids dressed in their little Christmas outfits, surrounded by elegant Christmas decorations, and sometimes there were songs and stories that Santa would tell. Santa came with presents with our names on them, each delicately chosen for each person. And we had to sit on his lap all the way up to adults. Grandpa had to sit on Santa's lap, so none of us got. As we opened our presents, you could see Grandma's joy light up the room. That was her night, her evening, Christmas Eve. That was her time to shine. Above all, Grandma was a pillar of love and devotion, supporting her husband, Glenn, with unwavering commitment. Their journey together was filled with loyalty, respect, and a partnership that spoke of the depth of their bond. And her love for her family was boundless, a legacy that lives on in the traditions she instilled and the memories she left with us. My grandma was always the one that tied the family together, insisting on gatherings, making sure everybody remained talking to each other. She was a true matriarchal woman. There are so many things I could talk about. I better let other people share, like my cousins, before I say everything. I would say that this last year I had the privilege of taking care of Grandma. It was a very special and rewarding experience for me, and I was glad I was healthy to be there for her in her last days. And the whole time, she stood strong with her resilience, her strength, and her dignity. Grandma's love for her family was boundless. We carry her legacy not just in the things she adored, but in the love she poured into each of us. Today we celebrate her life. We remember her not with sadness, but with gratitude. For every moment, every story, every laugh, and every ounce of love she so effortlessly poured into the world. Today, we honor her, a life well lived and a love that will never fade. And that's what I have today. Love you, Grandma.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. Melva Jean. She was a wonderful woman, fun-loving woman, known for big hair, and big hair that she would, and her quirks, which we'll get into a few of her quirks here. So thinking back, one of my earliest memories with Melva was going up to Grandma Nellie's in the old blue trailer by the Red Hill. And we'd go up there and have cowboy coffee. Now, cowboy coffee, you know, you'd think would be a masculine cowboy coffee, but no, this was mainly cream and sugar with a little bit of coffee mixed in. And I remember we'd be up there and there'd be candy and cookies. And I remember Melva always saying, now don't drink too much of that coffee, it'll turn your knees black, which I still don't know where that saying comes from. She's always saying it'll turn your knees black. So anyway, had good memories there at Grandma Nellie's. Over at Glenna Melva's place, in contrast, shoes off, of course, if you're in there, I remember, as I remember it, all there was Raisin Bran. Melva loved Raisin Bran. She's just Raisin Bran, Raisin Bran, Raisin Bran. And I hated Raisin Bran. And the only other thing that I remember there in the fridge was cheese, the big cheese with the thick wax around it, and every kind of cheese you could imagine, as I recall. And, you know, thinking back, you know, kind of makes sense. Needed all that cheese for the Raisin Bran, perhaps. So, anyways. Other memories there at Glenna Melva's, you know, Nettie touched on the Christmas parties. We all had these great Christmas parties. The family would come together, we'd eat dinner, Santa Claus would come. And I remember this one time that was different. And Santa Claus didn't show up when he was supposed to. And he didn't show up for a long time. It was like about an hour. And Melva was, of course, getting a little worked up. And I think we said maybe he was weather delayed, Rudolph couldn't make it, whatever. But what actually had happened is Santa Claus had a full-blown panic attack, had an anxiety attack. So I was thinking about that, and I'm like, maybe we're not the best family to Santa Claus for, you know? And maybe it is that Santa Claus was just camera shy, because as we all know, you know, Melva was incessant with the camera. I mean, she'd drive everybody crazy. You know, she was in your face taking pictures. And as kids, we developed a deterrent for that, which was the middle finger. If we'd put up the middle finger, she typically wouldn't take our picture. In fact, there was one photo with Brett, Jesse, and I we saw Tuesday while we were there going through all these pictures, and we had every middle finger up. So couldn't erase them back then. It was memorialized. You know, but in the end, to Nettie, you know, she was vindicated in the end, because as much grief as we gave her, there's thousands of pictures and fantastic pictures, and I actually look forward to, you know, going through a lot more, because we went through them for hours, and there's just a lot of good stuff in there. So, Other memories, remember kind of making the rounds. Don't remember the age, but she'd come blowing up in the Suburban, left foot on the brake, right foot on the gas. That's the way she'd drive. And, maybe she's a little nosy. She'd stop in and see how the kids were doing, Craig and Sue, whatever, and then she'd take off. And I think what she'd do is she'd go to Brad's, and she'd go to Lane's, and she'd go to Glenda's, and then she'd come back, because she'd do it like multiple times sometimes. She'd just like make a circle. And one time, this is a little bit cruel, but I decided to go out and hide in the Suburban and to scare her. And I don't know how long I was laying in there, but she finally came out, and I didn't just jump up right then and there. I let her drive a little while. And I think I probably had the smarts, if you will, to wait, or to veer onto traffic or whatever. But I jumped up at one point, scared the daylights out of her. And so she is a good sport. I don't remember how exactly she reacted to it, but it was kind of me of me. But other kind of funny memories, going south to St. George's. Nettie said, her cleaning stuff was next level. I mean, the OCD, I get some of it, but, my dad had it, I get it, but it was on a totally different level. And I was staying there for the weekend, and I think it was the John Wayne room that didn't have a bathroom, and you had to go across the hall to the pool bathroom. And so I went over there to shower and finished up and headed back to the John Wayne room. When I got in there, I heard Melva say, "Tyler, you're getting the travertine dirty." And I'm like, what is she talking about? So I go out there, and literally there's not even wet footprints, there's damp footprints, going across the travertine. And I just shook my head. I think, Glenn probably chuckled, and it was just, that was Melva. I mean, getting the travertine dirty with damp feet, who knew? So, other memory, one of my favorite memories, we used to go down to Mesquite. They'd go more often, but this one time I was down there, and she liked to gamble and play Blazing Sevens. She was pretty good at it. Legend has it when she'd hit a jackpot, she'd actually just put the ticket in her purse and send somebody to Glenn for more money, so. But after we'd gambled or whatever, we were having dinner at the steakhouse there. And after dinner, it was Brad that ordered up a round of cognac. And cognac's a sipper. It's not a shooter. And these were big cognac glasses, something to settle your stomach after dinner. Again, not a shooter. Well, Melva, we put up the toast or whatever, and I think before anybody could say cheers or whatever, she slammed back this massive cognac shot like it was a shot, and just kind of made it quiver a little bit. It was like nothing for her. She just, carried on. So she was pretty tough, Melva. And in closing, as far as memories, I think my favorite memories of Melva are actually, I don't know why I get emotional, but maybe I can say this, but the bickering, Glenn and Melva bickering. It was bickering with love, but, it would get kind of heated sometimes, but it was with love, and they'd say things back and forth, and sometimes Melva would storm off, and sometimes they'd just stop, but I just always remember Grandpa would look at me and smile, just shake his head. So, anyway, we'll miss you, Grandma. We love you, and yeah, miss you.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for being here. Since Grandma's passing, I've spent a lot of time thinking about the stories and memories that stand out, the ones that really capture who she was. As I started going through them, I realized something kind of funny. Almost every memory I have of my grandma also includes my grandpa. At first, I thought I should try to just focus on her. After all, today is about Grandma. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that's exactly who she was. Grandma and Grandpa were a team. They were a package deal. And I think that's how she'd want to be remembered, together with him. They were married for almost 75 years. That alone says a lot. I feel incredibly lucky that so many of my memories are filled with both of them by my side, doing life together. Grandma loved to travel, especially in the motorhome. I remember one trip when we were staying at the RV park in Deadwood, South Dakota. Deadwood's this old western town full of saloons and casinos and a lot of history. It's a pretty neat place that we like to go. One night we headed out of town for dinner and a little gambling. She played the classic Blazing Sevens slot machines for a while, and we decided to check out Kevin Costner's new bar that had just opened. It had live music and dancing, and Grandma was all in. Now, I don't know if Red Bull gives everyone wings, but it sure gave them to Grandma. After a couple of Red Bulls, she was dancing with Grandpa until almost 3 o'clock in the morning. She absolutely loved going out, having fun, and enjoying every moment. That was Grandma. She was full of energy, joy, and always a little mischief. Another time I'll never forget was Easter when I was in the 5th grade. We were heading down to Caneville for the weekend, and my parents were heading down a day later, so I rode down with Grandma and Grandpa. As soon as we got to camp, I unloaded my motorcycle and headed straight for Silt Hill. But on the way, I hit a rock, flew over the handlebars, and broke my collarbone. Somebody gathered me up and gave me a ride back to camp on the four-wheeler, and I remember walking up to Grandma, scared, hurting, and worried that I had ruined the weekend, and I told her what would happen, and I said, "My dad is going to be so mad." But she just smiled in that calm way of hers and said, "It's not a big deal." She helped me get into the truck, and they took me to the hospital in Richfield. Grandma always knew how to calm us down. She always made us feel okay, even when we weren't. She just had that way about her, steady, loving, and always taking the best care of us. One of the things I looked forward to every year was Grandma's Christmas Eve parties at her house. She threw the best Christmas parties. We'd all come together for dinner and then wait for Santa to arrive. I remember the Christmas tree, and especially the toy train she'd set up around the base. We always found some way to derail that poor little train. And of course, there were pictures. Grandma loved to take pictures every year. Family photos, group photos, silly photos. She had the camera out. And at the time, we gave her a hard time about it, but now we were sitting around her house the other night looking through old pictures, and I realized how lucky we are, because she captured everything. She captured us, and I am so grateful for that. One of my favorite memories is from our last elk hunt with Grandma on the Monroe Mountain. It was the final day of the season, and we were trying to find a good bull for Grandpa. The sun was starting to set, and we were rushing, hoping for one last chance. We came into a flat and spotted a nice 6-point. Brad stopped the rover. We all jumped out. Grandpa took a dead rest on the hood and took a shot and hit the elk, but then his rifle jammed. The whole time, Brad grabbed another rifle from the back and quickly got it ready for Grandpa. And the whole time, Grandma was in the back of the rover, bouncing up and down, yelling, "Shoot, shoot, shoot." Grandpa was trying to steady his aim, and Grandma was just as excited, or maybe more than all of us. She loved being a part of it. She loved the hunt, the mountains, the time with family. She was right there in the middle of the action, full of life. Grandma was the heart of so many of our best memories. Whether we were dancing in Deadwood, unwrapping unwrapping presents by the tree, or chasing elk through the mountains, she made every moment more fun, more comfortable, and more memorable. What I'll miss the most is her laugh, her energy, and the way she made you feel loved. While it's hard to say goodbye, I'm so grateful for the time we had with her. She gave us a lifetime of stories and a family full of love. And in the end, that's the greatest gift anyone could ever leave behind. Thank you.
Shorter than your breath.
Hi, I'm Stacy. I am Grandma's, fourth eldest grandchild. When Glenda asked me if I would say a few words about Grandma, initially I thought, how do I narrow it down to just a few words? There's so many words that I came up with, and I quickly started to paint this detailed portrait of a fascinating woman, a very kind, generous person. And truly the first thing that comes to mind is our grandpa. Always grandpa, and her unwavering support and dedication to grandpa. Then I just started to jot down some words that reminded me of grandma from a very young age. Some of you might remember this Day and Night Cafe. Day and Night Cafe is very nostalgic. Cowboy coffee, of course. We always remember cowboy coffee, and I believe that that's where we started drinking cowboy coffee. Ryan, where are you? Maybe. Cowboy coffee, Mom's Cafe, green peas. Green peas, Grandma always loved green peas. And I have a funny story when, this was in the early 2000s, I was battling a relapse. And Grandma was there for me every day. And every day she brought food from Mom's Cafe. And every day that food from Mom's Cafe had peas. So I was soon like, oh my goodness, more peas. I have to eat more peas. And so no longer do I like peas. Box of Seeds candies at Christmas time from Grandma. That was something that we were always so excited to get, the Christmas boxes of Seeds candies. The world's best Thanksgiving stuffing. I wish I had her recipe. Carla Rossi wine. Excuse me, Carla Rossi wine. Miniature cereal boxes, big black hair, red lipstick, and Estee Lauder are some of the other things that come to mind. Kenny Rogers and Dolly Parton, and all of you humor me on this one. When I was little, I truly believed that Grandma was somehow related to Dolly because of the figure. I'm like, she certainly has got to be related to Dolly Parton. And I soon obviously realized as I aged that no, she wasn't. Related to Dolly, but she certainly idolized Dolly Parton, dressed classy like Dolly Parton. She thought that she was just the neatest lady, and she is. You know, obviously we all know that Dolly's an amazing person. Alabama, you know, we would sing Alabama, play me some mountain music. Yeah, all the time. And of course we can't forget John Wayne. Grandma's Polaroid camera, any kind of camera. She loved big hugs, big kisses, and lest we forget that she was absolutely an incredibly clean woman. And this reminds me of our times at the cabin. Nanette, Ryan, Stacy, Jared, Tyler, or excuse me, Christopher. Tyler wasn't in the picture yet, so we had Christopher. Of course, we're not going to brag about our ages, but I would say that we were probably the luckier of the first group of grandchildren, you know. We got to enjoy so much time at the cabin. I believe it was built, does anybody know, 77, 78, 78? So we were young, and we were all still pretty young. You know, the kids played with Lincoln Logs. We watched Shirley Temple movies, Patsy Cline movies. Like, I think that's when we first started learning about Patsy Cline, and Brad's favorite Raggedy Ann doll that we threw over the railing onto Brad's head over and over and over again. But we played hard, you know, running through the trees at the cabin. And so we got dirty. And of course, every time we're at the cabin and Grandma's cleanliness, she stood at the front door of the cabin with her broom. And as we all wanted to enter the cabin, she was like, hold on here a minute, we've got to dust off your britches. We've got to dust off your britches. So we'd all turn from front to back and get our britches dusted off. Did you guys go through that too as adults? Even though it was something that we knew she was going to do, she made it fun. I mean, she always made everything fun. Grandma was always very supportive and very understanding, and I learned this at a very young age. We lived just, 2 blocks west of Grandma and Grandpa when I was probably around 4 years old. And I don't know what I did. Brian might get the blame for this one. But I had done something at 4 years old, and I was running away with my suitcase in tow. And I don't know how far I got. Maybe you remember, Mom, but I didn't get too far. And I remember at the corner there was a willow tree down the road. So I got to the willow tree, and I just remember somebody telling me they had to go pick a willow off the willow tree. But I don't think it got used. But whatever I had done, I just knew that my grandma was going to save the day because I was in trouble. And So I did know at a very young age that she was, the greatest grandma and very loyal and always there for us no matter what. A few more words that come to mind. ZCMI, talking about shopping, ZCMI and Little America Hotel. I believe that our memories got to start in the 80s. We were pretty young. Yeah, I don't remember for sure how old we were on our first shopping trip to ZCMI, but we're in ZCMI, and Grandma had talked us into going to Market Street Grill. I think it was one of the first times we got to go to Market Street Grill, so we're there, and we're excited. And I would dare say, Nanette, you might have been 16 or 17. So I was, about 14, and we got in trouble. We got in trouble at Market Street Grill because Grandma tried to sneak us a drink. So I think we got kicked out of Market Street Grill. Oh. Yeah, it was funny. Yeah, the waiter didn't think that we were too funny, but anyways. I'm Brett Deadwood, South Dakota. That's one thing that was one of my last trips that I truly remember with Grandma and Grandpa. And we were in Kevin Costner's Bar and Grill in Deadwood, and we were up at the bar. She was so excited because she was like, Kevin Costner has got to be here. I know he's got to be here. Anyway, so we're at the bar, and we're just all kind of going down the line, and the bartender had asked if I wanted, everybody's drinking Jaeger and Red Bull. And he's like, you're not going to have any? I said, no, I'm good. And so Grandma comes up, and Grandma's like, I'll have one. So the bartender's like, hold on here, man. How old is your grandmother? You're not going to have any? So I was like, okay. But anyways, and we danced and had fun. And I remember walking in the streets of Deadwood and just had so much fun. But it was always a riot with Grandma. Anyways, a few more words that would describe our grandmother. She was very generous, very nurturing, devoted, joyful, slightly stubborn, very determined, fiercely loyal, and fiercely strong. There's so much that we could say, and I could stand here and talk about so many stories. I would say another fun story that I have of Grandma is she taught me, Glenda, or Nanette, you were with us, she taught me how to drive a stick shift truck. So we're driving the dark green truck. Is it a Chevy? It was a Chevy. We're driving the old Chevy pickup, and I ran it into the ditch. And I think we had to walk to your house, Glenda, to have somebody come and help us, but I drove the truck into the ditch. But anyways, lots of fun memories. But Grandma, we love you so much. Thank you for all of the wonderful things that you've done for our family, and you will be truly missed.
Hi, I'm Heather Nilsson. As many of you know, I had the privilege to take care of Melva and Glenn in the last years of their life. Many of you know that I referred to her as Granny and Gramps, so that's what they will be referred to in my talk. When I first started to take care of Granny and Gramps, it was a learning curve for all of us. Gramps, Mr. Independent, and Granny wasn't so sure what I was doing there and why I was always there. Gramps needed more time and attention in those early days, and she surely was not liking that. She'd look at me half joking, half serious, and question me, "You're not trying to move in on my husband, are you?" I'd laugh and assure her most definitely I was not, and that I was just there to take care of both of them. But over time, something beautiful happened, and she went from worrying that I was taking her husband to not wanting me out of her sight. We built something special in those days, and I was the guardian of the garage. And I was there to beat up the boogeyman. I was there to protect them, and before Gramps passed away, his biggest concern, more than the business, more than anything, was her. He worried about leaving her and how she'd be cared for, and I made him a promise one night. During one of our talks, I would never leave her. I would make sure she was safe, loved, and never alone. And I kept that promise every single day that I could. Granny wasn't someone I simply cared for, she was my family. I was so lucky to walk beside her in her final chapter. She was clever, she was smart, and she was sharp. Most people didn't always notice that her memory was slipping, and she didn't want people to know as well. So somebody would walk up to us and have a conversation with us. She'd carry on with that conversation, act like nothing was wrong. And as that person turned, she would lean in and ask me, "Now, who was that?" I'd let her know who that was, and she'd say, "Oh yeah, I remember now." I'd always tell her it was always okay not to remember. Half the time I didn't either. And we'd laugh and move on. Oh, she loved long drives, hours and hours around this town. Through every back road, she never wanted to go home. If we had a window to look out of and Elvis to play on the radio, she was happy and content. And when we passed a Barney truck, she'd point, "Well, looks like you've got one working today." I'd simply reply with a, "Yep, looks like we can afford one more ice cream." Barney blue, every shade of it reminded her of the company her and Gramps built. It didn't matter what color of blue it was Barney blue. Sometimes the only way I could get her to agree to go home was to tell her I needed to go work on the trucks. She truly believed that after Gramps passed, I was the one running the show. Oh, was she only so wrong. She would get stuck on thoughts and things, and once they entered her head, they stayed. It could be days, weeks, and even months before those thoughts passed. And her thoughts, well, she thought they were quiet. She spoke them out loud. Like when there was a time she was convinced I was stinking up the bathroom. She'd go in there, come out, flip on the fan, open the front door, and wave it over and over. And she would mutter, "I wish that girl would know how to turn on the fan. Doesn't she know better?" To this day, nobody ever smelled what she did, but I heard every thought and always knew exactly where I stood with her. Food was another funny one. I'd bring her something to eat, and she would mutter, "Does she think I'm gonna actually eat this crap? What even is this?" And then she'd eat it, every last bite. She'd tell me over and over of how her and Gramps came to be. I was 16 when we got married. My mom said I needed to finish school, and he said, "No, you don't. I'll take care of you." And he did just that. That story was like a cornerstone, something she repeated often, something she held onto. She never could remember my name. I was always that girl, the other girl. I'd go away for the weekend, and I would come back, and she'd be lying in bed, and she would roll over and see me, and you would hear her say, "There she is, she's back," like her whole world was right again. Her photos were her treasures. We'd spend hours looking at them. Her eyes lit up with each memory. One of my favorite memories with her is when we took her and Gramps down to Mesquite. There was Jared and Brad and all of us went down there to Mesquite. And we went to dinner at Catherine's, and she and Gramps wanted to leave before everybody else was finished. And so I took them back out to the casino. Well, lucky for us, Elvis was there. He was the performer that night. As soon as she heard that music, she was off like a woman on a mission with her little rollator, headed straight for the stage, and I had him in tow and trying to catch her. She was on her way. She hit the dance floor and was boogieing and shaking her legs like Elvis. I took off and left her on the dance floor, sprinting back to Catherine's to go get the rest of the family so they could come and join in on the fun. We danced, we sang, and we laughed the night away and just watched how special that was to her. Later on, after Gramps had passed, Haley, Glenda, and I decided to take her back down when he was there again, the Elvis impersonator. We did the same thing. We danced, we laughed, we sang, had a great time with her. And at the end of his set, I was able to go over and grab him and ask him to come and meet her. And he willingly come over there and took a picture with her. Well, I printed off that picture, and if anybody's been to the house, they've seen this picture and they've been told about this picture. But even though I took the picture, I was there. She would come up, show me the picture. Look, it's me and Elvis. Aren't you jealous? Was I so? I would have to exclaim to her my utter jealousy of that not so good looking Elvis. But to her, it was Elvis, and that's what made it special. She loved Elvis and John Wayne, but I'd always tease her. They were her boyfriends, and she would always correct me. No, no, no. Gramps is my sweetheart. I just like them. Taking her out in public was always an adventure. One time, Haley and I decided we'd take her to Denny's for lunch. We were walking to our table, and the next thing I know, she reached out and grabbed this poor gentleman's ear. He, utter shock, utter shock with Haley and I, thinking that she actually did that. He just kind of giggled, and we scurried her on her way to the seat. Another time, she reached out and pulled a gentleman's beard, and you just never knew. Walking through Barrett's, one of the last time I had her in there, we rounded a corner, and she just grabs a hold of this gentleman. She says, "I am Melva Thompson Barney. Don't you know who I am?" I think the look on my face, he played along. After getting her out of there, bless his heart, Granny was a proper lady for most of her life, as we all know. Although dementia is so heartbreaking, it can pull back the layers. It showed us her spunky, playful, sassy side. There was a time that she started sneaking up on me, trying to scare me. Even though I always heard her coming, I'd pretend to be so spooked, and she would laugh so hard and continually doing it. Then the tickling phase came. She would chase Brad around the garage trying to tickle him and everybody else. Then the spanking phase. Everyone was asked if they was being good, and if not, she was ready to offer them a spanking. I think I was the only one she held true on that word. She got me a couple of times, wasn't prepared. There was one time I had to take her, and she had a little cancer spot on her cheek here, and I had to have it taken off. So she bruised. When people would see her, they would ask her what had happened, and I would whisper, "Tell them we drank too much whiskey and got in a bar fight." She would repeat and then giggle and say, "No, we're just kidding." Oh, and then the bra phase. For some reason, she wanted new bras and got obsessed with the bras. At one point, she asked me, "Well, what kind of bra do you wear?" Me being me, I showed her. Horrified, she said, "I can't wear a bra like that. I have to get a proper bra." It was a sports bra. But anyway, I don't know why she got on that, but it was all she wanted to talk to for about a while, and it made us all giggle. One of the little things that always made her smile was my shoes. I came to work wearing bright red shoes one day, and her eyes lit up. She said, "Boy, those are some red shoes. I can see you coming a mile away." After that, I wore those red shoes just for her and would run around like a crazy woman telling her how fast they made me. And she would just giggle. Eventually, I started buying more shoes, bright pink, lime green, even a tangerine color, just so she'd have something fun to notice. I didn't buy them for her. I didn't buy them for me. I bought them for her because something as simple as a loud pair of sneakers could bring her such joy. I was going to do it. She truly cherished the time that she had with her family. Even if she didn't always remember exactly who you were, she remembered the feeling and the love and being surrounded by it. Glenda spent countless hours with us, and we would sing and laugh and go for rides up Gooseberry. Her presence brought Granny comfort, familiarity, and joy. One thing Granny always admired about Glenda was her long, beautiful hair. She would sit and stare at her hair, and you'd hear her whisper, "Long hair." And if Glenda had it pulled up, not down and long and pretty, she would let Glenda know with either a look or a mumble. It always made us laugh. So many beautiful memories were made with Glenda, Granny, and I, just being together, sharing love. Her family was everything to her. She and Gramps built a legacy, not only through their work, but through their children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. They had the 4 kids. Craig, who passed away, he was surely missed, and she talked about him often in the beginning. I'm sure he was waiting with his arms open for her. Glenda, her loving, devoted daughter, came to visit often and always made sure Granny was well cared for. Brad brought the laughter and strength. Every visit he would tease her and she would giggle like a little girl. Lane, her baby boy, always had a special place in her heart. When he visited, she'd always ask if he was being a good boy, and if not, she was going to threaten him with spankings. Every visit, every hug, every moment meant the world to her. She lit up around children and had a special soft spot for dogs too. The visits, the laughter, that's all she could hold on to. In the end, I kept my promise I made to Gramps. I never left her. I stayed by her side through the laughter, the hard days, and the very quiet in-between moments. It was one of the greatest honors of my life to walk the road with her. She taught me about strength, humor, love, and letting go. Granny lived a life full of faith, grit, and heart, and now I'd like to think she's reunited with Gramps and Craig and all the loved ones she's missed. Free, full of joy, probably dancing to Elvis and telling everybody exactly what she thinks. We'll carry her stories, her sass, her sweetness, and her love with us always. Rest easy, Granny, you're finally home. To the Barney family, thank you. Thank you for trusting me to care for her. She loved you all very much. Haley, thank you for being my rock through it all. You've always gave me what I needed when I needed it. To my husband and my kids, thank you for the support and understanding for all the long days away and the missed moments with you. You knew how much I cared and how deeply this mattered to me. Thank you to the ladies that also worked hand in hand with me to take care of her and cared about her as much as I do. Thank you.
We want to thank all those who have participated today in any way. What a beautiful tribute for Melva, and I'm sure that her and Glenn are watching today, and I'm sure that she is very happy and honored. Truly enjoyed those memories of her. I didn't know her like most of you did, but anybody that's a fan of the Duke, I feel like we're kindred spirits. So I found a quote I'd just like to share that I think is appropriate. It says, "Some nights are much longer than others, but the morning always follows. Death brings deep sorrow, but our joy will exceed our ability to comprehend when our reunion with deceased loved ones finally comes. Yet peace is not reserved for the next life only. We can feel peace now, even in the very moment we are feeling pain. How thankful we can be for the sacrifice of our Savior and the healing power his atonement can bring us in spite of our grief. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning." In light of what we know about our eternal destiny, is it any wonder that whenever we face the bitter endings of life, they seem unacceptable to us? There seems to be something inside of us that resists endings. Why is this? Because we are made of the stuff of eternity. We are eternal beings, children of the Almighty God, whose name is endless and who promises eternal blessings without number. Endings are not our destiny. The more we learn about the gospel of Jesus Christ, the more we realize that endings here in mortality are not endings at all. They are merely interruptions, temporary pauses that one day will seem small compared to the eternal joy awaiting the faithful. I'd just like to add my testimony to that. I'm so grateful for my Savior and for his atonement and his death and his sacrifice and his resurrection, that through that gift that made it possible for all of us. And grateful again to the family for allowing me to participate and be here with you all this day. And I say that in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Our dear kind Heavenly Father, we are indeed grateful to be here this day to celebrate the life of Melva Barney. We're thankful for the life that she lived. We're thankful for the love and kindness she showed to all. We're thankful for her devotion to her family and friends. We're also thankful at this time for the plan of salvation. We're thankful to know that her and Glenn are reunited, and the rest of her family that's been gone on before. We're indeed grateful for the legacy that her and Glenn left behind. We bless at this time the Barney family to continue on with that legacy and live a life of love and kindness. Bless them to always remember the memories that they shared with her. But be with the Barney family to have comfort and peace at this time, that they know their love of their mother and father, their grandmother. We're indeed grateful for this life and the many blessings it brings to all of us. And we say these things humbly in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Would you all please rise? Could we get the pallbearers to meet the casket right here by the exit door? Thank you.